Hello, everyone. Welcome to the GLORIO Chat, the best anime podcast on the internet. I want to start by saying happy anniversary to us. July 2024 is our 12th anniversary of the GLORIO blog. We are entering, I believe, our 49th season of anime coverage.
The GLORIO blog is finally old enough to drink.
Can you? Wait, what?
What?
Can you drink at 12?
Some places, probably. You can.
I mean you physically can't drink at 12, I guess.
Who's to say you can't?
Let's kick this episode off with underage drinking. So it is 12 years in. Nobody really cares about 12 years, I guess, but every year that we tack on, I feel like is an accomplishment. So congrats to us, I guess. But yes, it is a new season, summer 2024. Interesting batch of shows. I know I've found a few shows that I liked. I will see if I can convince you all on some of these. I think Artemis, you might be on board with some of these already, but we'll get into that. So
I'm sure I'll find things to comment on.
Yeah. So before we get into it, let me just introduce everybody. I am Jel. I am joined by Iro.
I'm still here. I'm not dead yet.
We have the return of G.
Hey, everybody. Sorry about my absence last recording. I was just so busy fighting the final boss of Elden Ring: Shadow of the Erdtree. I just didn't have time to come on. That was definitely the reason.
You've been fighting that boss for 3 weeks straight.
Exactly, yes. No, actually, the true... I've been fighting the actual real hardest boss in life, which is moving.
Yeah.
Childbirth
is right out. Just... that ain't shit compared to
all right, look, man, you can't bring that up. I mean, that's look, man, I'm making a bit here.
Yes.
You want to talk about the actual hardest things in life?
Yes.
Yes.
You don't have access to that boss, G. That's
no, I do not.
Your build
have
is,
access.
Your build is
I did not download that DLC.
Yeah, you did not go. You did not access that route. But yes.
But
anyway, we're also joined by Artemis.
Hello, good to be here.
I was double checking, Artemis, and you joined the GLORIO crew at the end of December 2014. So it's almost 10 years that you have been hanging out with us for some reason.
Oh, damn. Well, oh no.
You really shouldn't put things like that into...
It would have been about 5 years, right? Sure.
No, we're rapidly approaching 10 on that one. But
guys, 2017 is only 5 years ago, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It was only 5 years ago.
It's been 2019, 2019, 2019, 2019.
I joined you guys when I was your official Japan correspondent, I guess.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now you're
yeah.
No, I do remember, like, at the time I was scouting other independent blogs, and
and I was for some reason your best pick. How many did you go through?
Look, no shade to other anime bloggers out there. We all do this for fun, but I will say you were the only good writer. You were a very good writer, and I was like, oh, I think she would fit well. I could not find any others at that time that I was like I wanted to actually recruit, but yes.
Aww.
It was, but yeah, crazy.
You can just say it. You can just say it, Jel. You needed to bring some good taste onto the GLORIO blog.
Yes,
damn.
That's true. Yeah, very true. All right. Well, let's get into the new season, folks.
It's back.
Anime is back. Let's. We got quite a few shows here to talk about.
Oh, do we?
We had the two returning ones we were going to have was going to be Nier Automata and Sengoku Yoko, but that Sengoku Yoko has not aired the new episode yet as of recording.
Not yet.
So I think that's going to come out like either the day before or the day of that this goes out. So we have not seen that yet, obviously. But we did get the return of Nier Automata version 1.1a, which shouldn't it be like 1.1 1.2 or 1.1b or something?
I mean, maybe it should be called 1.1c at this point.
Yeah.
Okay. but yeah, I have not. I'm so behind on this. But why don't you guys tell me? We're back into Route C. Was it? Is that what we're saying?
Pretty much.
Yeah. So 2 episodes of the second season have already come out. The sort of I would say the like simple headline, the simple byline I would give is that Nier Automata version 1.1a kind of continues to be personally one of the most successful adaptations of a video game into anime. I think they continue to hold to that very strongly. I think with the second season, I think again to kind of like to recap like kind of the strengths of that anime. I think the thing that like version 1.1a does very well is that it takes a lot of the feelings and vibes of its source material and like finds a very effective way to translate them to anime. I think it kind of manages to avoid a lot of the classic pitfalls of these sorts of things. It cannot perfectly replicate the passage of time or the inherent intentional kind of drudgery of playing video games, right? Because, look, like playing a video game is anywhere from a 20 to 60 hour affair, right? That's
right.
You just cannot translate that exact feeling.
You can't capture the loneliness of wandering across a open, dead, apocalyptic world.
Exactly. But I think the anime does a good job of capturing a lot of that. And, also maybe even more importantly, is that the anime makes a lot of interesting choices narratively and directorially, I think, to sort of make it stand out, to communicate that, like, this is Nier Automata, but it is a slightly skewed version of what you saw in the game, right? Like, details have been changed, characters have been switched around, and it kind of continues to do that with the second season. I mean, the first episode literally kind of is almost just an episode-long flashback of 2B and 9S doing various side quests from the original game. Most importantly being the one about the E units, the executioner units of Yorha, where 2B and 9S basically meet an android who has suffered some kind of memory loss and is going through some kind of like mental degradation, only to reveal that in addition to all the other unit androids that exist as part of Yorha, who are the force fighting for humanity against the machine life forms that have taken over Earth, you have your B units, which are battle type units. You have your S units, who are scanners, O units, who are operators, right? It turns out there is a hidden unit known as E units, who are essentially the
executioner unit, right?
Yes. The kind of the They are there to make sure nobody digs too deep, right? That if
not
anyone
quite the secret police, but kind of the secret police,
right? Well, they are the secret police in the sense that they are secret. That
Yes.
they are nobody is supposed to know these types of units exist, right?
Right.
Because they exist solely to kill any other Yorha unit that gets too close to discovering the true nature of the war between the androids and the machine life forms, and then they kind of use this to then kind of go into a sort of anthology style story of basically like 9S repeatedly getting too close to the truth and then 2B having to kill him over and over again. And I think it's really effective because this is something you kind of can't really show in the video game, where you always have to have a viewpoint character. But because we are sort of a passive observer of these events in the anime version, we can kind of watch, like, from afar, these events that you kind of couldn't really experience in the game.
Right. And like in the game, that fact is revealed, but you don't witness it happening over and over again. You just know that it did.
Right.
Yeah, like there's a great bit where 9S is like, they're exploring the desert temple from the original Nier, and which was not in the game. It was not in Automata, I mean. And you get these great shots from both 2B and 9S's perspective, where they are looking at the other from behind. And repeatedly, they replay out this image of like one reaching out the hand towards the other in a sort of threatening manner, or raising their sword hand up before hard cutting to the next scene where their hand is down again. it's a good sense of like building tension, right? Like,
Yeah.
and like 9S is literally about to discover his own corpse in one of these in one of these timelines. Like there's like a half buried 9S corpse that he's literally about to discover before, he gets distracted at the last second. And 2B sighs a breath, a little bit of relief that she doesn't have to kill 9S yet.
Yeah.
And yeah, they twist it in some fun ways where like they do the Emil reveal scene. They have
That's right.
They find Emil, our precious boy Emil, a character from the original Nier. He is in the mall area, and in the original video game, that's kind of just like an inconsequential cutscene before you transition to the next area of the game. But here, they use 9S discovering the existence of Emil as like a good enough grounds for 2B to execute 9S. And
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then until a guy pulls the camera out to reveal this is just one of the dozens of times this has happened, right? Like that in some ways, even it implies that even the cycle of the game Nier Automata itself has been played out time and time again, right? Just to be forced to murder 9S over and over again, and the way that this begins to wear on her psyche. And with that, we then enter the second episode, which is the beginning of Route C, where the androids begin their assault on Earth to, as they claim, definitively defeat the machine life forms once and for all.
Definitely.
And not as different. It's a pretty straightforward adaptation of kind of the beginning of Route C, but again, for those familiar with the source material, they do a good job of kind of playing the sense of creeping dread that, like, this is all about to go very wrong. Like that.
Yeah, and there are certain touch points that you have to do the same, right? To keep the plot
right
moving. Yeah.
But yeah, I will say one funny change they kind of added to the anime is so 9S is coordinating with all the other S units for the like attack on Earth, right? And they're going to be handling the hacking and support side of this war effort, right? And he's like checking in on all the other S units, and all the other S units are like being pampered and
coddled
like,
and
coddled by their like mobby B units. We're all like way more affectionate and like motherly towards
that is very funny. That is very
and so
funny.
You keep cutting to these. He's like, yep, I'm 4S, and he is literally resting in the lap of his respective B unit, or like another one is like being caressed.
Really,
9S just gets
funny.
Increasingly jealous.
Yeah,
he's like, why won't how come my mommy doesn't do that for me?
Well,
it's pretty good. And in classic Yoko Taro fashion, it makes it hit all the harder once the logic virus hits, and you cut to all these same S units being brutally slaughtered by their respective B unit.
Yeah, they set us up on that one.
Yep.
Classic Yoko Taro.
Yeah. Classic Yoko Taro move.
What if horny but sad?
Yeah, the total summary of Nier Automata. Well, that's cool. Like, that they're keeping up the same formula. It sounds like of adapting the material to anime and finding new value to add with it. So,
and the next episode preview puppet shows are as good as ever.
Oh yes, they're great. Yes.
Nice.
There's a great one where they one of the puppet shows has them go to the DLC arena, and
where you fight the Square Enix CEO or whatever.
Yes. So for those who are not aware, one of the DLCs released for Nier Automata is an arena DLC where you basically just, it's a combat arena. It's just like, hey, do you like Nier Automata's combat? Here's an excuse to do more of it. Except that the secret final boss of it is the literal president of Square Enix. And it's basically like an impossible boss fight. Like I don't know if you can actually beat it. It's like intentionally like ratcheted like crazy.
Yoko Taro knew this whole time.
Yes, and so we were like, here's the thing, that guy's not the president of Square anymore. So
Oh, but did they keep him in it?
Well, yes, but he's introduced as the former president of
Oh,
Square
okay.
And also,
now you're
then the current president also descends.
also shows up. It's
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
What a fun way to say that you can't beat capitalism.
Yeah. God.
That's very good. Very good. All right.
Yep.
Well, maybe I will catch up with that if I have time. Although I don't think I watched because there was the big gap right when the show went on hiatus.
Yeah.
I don't think I caught up with when they came back either, so I'm a few episodes behind at this point. But that does sound very cool. I might have to catch up with that. Okay. Let's go to our next show on here, Elusive Samurai. Is this the big? Remind me, is this the big Shonen Jump show this season?
Yes,
or is there another?
It seems to be so. It is the lavishly produced weekly Jump. Splash.
So what is this actually about?
All right. The Elusive Samurai is about the real person, Hojo Tokiyuki, who was part of the Hojo clan. The Hojo clan was sort of the de facto rulers of the Kamakura shogunate at the end of the Kamakura shogunate. And so he's just this, he's this little kid, this little nobleman. He doesn't want to do his classes. He's really good at running around while all of his retainers and buddies chase him down to try and make him do his archery classes or whatever.
Would you say he's elusive?
Yeah, one might say he's elusive. And then the Ashikagas kill all the Hojo clan at the end of the Kamakura shogunate, right? As happens in real life. And in real life, also, this kid did escape to a different province and stuff. But in this fictionalized version, he is escaping with a weird priest man, and it's like, yep, I'm gonna get revenge by running away and being real good at running away.
Okay.
And so like the second episode, for example, is they track down like one of the guys who betrayed them, sold them out to the Ashikaga clan, and fight him by running around, basically tiring him out by dodging every attack, right? Until his friends can get in and hold him down so they can kill him. So, I suppose that's the twist from a usual battle shonen type story where...
Right.
Your main character's strong, has a special move.
I mean, that's a classic,
right?
Where they have an unconventional ability of some kind, right?
And his is just, he's real good at parkour. He's real good at dodging. I
mean, that was literally Ranking of Kings, or
right.
God,
that's
I don't know.
That
for some reason, I just thought of Kuroko's basketball.
God, yeah.
Where he was just somehow invisible.
Right.
Yeah.
He could hide his presence.
Yeah.
Yeah. So probably the thing that stands out about the show the most, or I think that most people have been talking about, it is an incredibly well animated show. What a beautiful, lush production. It is by Cloverworks, and it's got some of the same staff who worked on Wonder Egg Priority.
Yep. They can make things look good if they have the time and the money.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of...
the people in the hospital.
Yep. Yeah. I'm sure it's happening again. There's a lot of, people running around in their big flowy period outfits, lots of rippling cloth and bouncing hair, and just cool stylistic flourishes. All of the backgrounds are lovingly painted, right? You can see sort of the texture on them. Everyone looks a little composited in, which I think is intentional, more so than normal anime, because it's the background is on a fancier type of drawing.
Right. Yeah.
But
the colors are also have this really rich, I don't want to say just saturated, because they didn't just like upper saturation. You know, they obviously spent a lot of time and effort doing that as well. But yeah, it is absolutely gorgeous to look at.
So I've heard a lot of people say that. My question is, beyond it being pretty, is it good? Like, is there, or is it just standard shonen Jump?
1.
No, not really. I don't
Not
care
really.
I don't care for the plot, right? Like,
Okay.
it's Shonen Jump, man. I don't know.
This has always been the thing, right? Like, it's at the end of the day, if all we cared about was really good animation, we would probably be watching a lot more shows.
We all would have watched
every season.
Arrow Manga Sensei or whatever.
Right, we would have watched Shield Hero or something. You know, like it's
Yeah.
So this is actually where I want to kind of like cut in, where I think. So here's the thing, right? I have seen the clips. As the art guy here, like I am impressed by what I see in the Elusive Samurai. But again, it's just like the premise. What little I've read, it just does not like.
Yeah.
What I think needs to be explained here is like because when you get an adaptation that looks this good, right? There's almost an assumption that like. Well, I think there's sometimes been a low-key assumption that quality of source material and quality of adaptation go hand in hand. That, if something is really well animated, it must have deserved it, right? Like, and I think
we all know this is false.
Yes. Yeah. Obviously, I am speaking rhetorically. I do not think anyone here is arguing that. But what I'm getting at is, I think the important thing to remember here is that yes, a lot of money has been thrown at this, and it probably has many like valid strengths in its own right. But at the end of the day, Elusive Samurai is the one of a handful of manga that get published in Shonen Jump that every year that gets one of these, right? Like one of these high-profile adaptations, right? Because Shonen Jump, for better or worse, is the premier manga publication in Japan. There's just kind of no way around it. And Jump has very much arrived at this new strategy, right? Very, very different from the big 3 days, right? Where like, you look at the days of like, well, I guess One Piece is still doing this, but you look at the days of One Piece, Naruto, and Bleach.
Even One Piece is like they've cranked the production of that way, way higher.
They have
compared to like
at times,
back
then,
yes. Right. Yeah.
The important thing to remember about the One Piece anime is that it does that judiciously. It does not look that good all the time. Like I have seen plenty of
but certainly more
episodes.
Often than
yes, they have definitely leaned
before,
into it.
Right? Yeah,
because this is perfect, right? Because we have arrived at this kind of weird world, like this weird escalating arms race of like the value of your shonen anime is how fucking sick can you get when you throw the money at it, right? It's not about saturation. It's not about having an episode every week. Now it's about dominating the
social media,
social media, right? And so
hence the Demon Slayers and Jujutsu Kaisens of the world, right?
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, like because like here's the thing: both of those manga were, I would say, decently popular prior to their anime. Like I'm not going to pretend like they were like obscure things nobody had ever heard of, but I would not call them global icons, right? Like Gen Zers did not call things domain expansion prior to 2019.
Yes.
Domain expansion did not become the new Bankai until the anime came out, and the strategy has clearly worked in Shonen Jump's favor, right? Like we have seen the exponential sales of a Jujutsu Kaisen, of a Demon Slayer, in the wake of hugely successful, lavishly adapted anime adaptations. And I think we've always had that subtext of, does Demon Slayer deserve the full might and prowess of UFO Table? Debatable. But they have received it nonetheless, right? And I think the thing I would give to Elusive Samurai compared to some of those other ones that I must give credit to some extent is maybe it's the subject matter, maybe it is the difference in how it's source material. It is definitely flashy, but it is flashy in not the kind of way that you have come to expect from these shonen adaptations. If you have watched a high-profile fight in Jujutsu Kaisen or Demon Slayer, where you have these very effects-driven Sakuga moments, right? Like flashing lights and streaks of neon lights and intense increases in the frame rate, so to speak, the frames. The thing that I think Elusive Samurai does very well is that it's actually, I would actually compare it to like the non-actiony moments of Freyren's adaptation. Like it places much greater emphasis on like the naturalism of like movement and action in ways that read very clearly.
Which is which I suppose naturally, if his power is I'm good at running and dodging, then that can be where the focus is, right?
Right, and especially if the source material is not, I mean, is it supernatural? I actually don't know.
If so, only lightly, right?
Right, and so it's like the kid's not like flash stepping; he's just like very quick and nimble.
Yeah,
and they animate that in a very like cool, appealing way. I had to give them credit for that. But I think again, at the end of the day, is it?
It's fine.
I mean,
right?
Yeah,
Zig,
right.
Zig's
It's
higher
fine
on it than I am, right?
Okay.
He is enjoying it more.
That sounds like something Zig might be more predisposed to like anyway. But
he is.
Yeah.
I don't think he is as worn down by Shonen Jump stuff than perhaps G or I are.
I mean, Eero and I, for better or worse,
you're like in general not into this type of show, right? Like, or this genre.
I mean, it's also we have for better or worse become this podcast shonen correspondence, which just means we're like deeply irony pilled at this point about this entire genre.
I mean, I personally can only watch one every like 5 years, so I mean,
like, oh yeah, this kid, he works hard, huh? Yeah, tell me more.
Yeah, all right. Well,
remember, kids, destroy your body for quick short-term gains.
Is this just watch the cool animation clips and
maybe? I mean, yeah, maybe.
I mean, people. I mean, I'm sure people will like it regardless. But for us personally, it sounds like it's just another one of those, and it happens to be very pretty.
It's very pretty.
Yeah.
There's a good segment where they walk through a burned village, and so all of the backgrounds for this segment are drawn only with like charcoal pencil because all the buildings are burnt, right?
Right.
That's like a neat effect,
that's pretty cool. Yeah. Sounds like it looked nice.
Yeah, it sure looks nice.
Without seeing much of it myself, yeah. All right. Well, I mean, you guys are not going to keep watching it, I'm assuming?
I've watched the second episode. I may watch the third, but I do not intend to watch any further.
Right, at least make it to episode 3. Okay. We'll see.
Just because it looks nice, but yeah.
All right. Let's move on to Twilight Out of Focus. This is a very loud and proud boys love story. To the point I joked about there's one very bit I wrote in the first look post. There's one very funny bit where someone literally slaps a chalkboard that says BL on it. It's very funny.
Sure.
But putting the sort of self-awareness aside, it is a story about these two dudes that are roommates at a dorm. They go to school together, and one of them is gay and has a boyfriend, but he's trying to keep it a secret. And his roommate finds out, and he swears to not reveal the secret. And Artemis, you might have to remind me what the other half of their promise was. Wasn't there another part of the promise?
That the other guy is also gay, or at least is attracted to men. But he doesn't. He just wants to be left alone. Like he just. He wants to just. They just both want to go about their lives and not live in secrecy, but without like any fear of either of them outing the other to anyone.
Right. But there's clearly, they're clearly playing up tension between the two guys, even though they're like, oh yeah, nothing's going to happen or whatever.
Right. And it's obvious by the end of even if the premise did not give it away, which I assure you it does, but if it did not by the end of the episode, it's fairly freaking obvious.
That's what they're going for here. Yeah.
And I want to say real quick that I mentioned in my first look, little bit that I thought this could perhaps appeal to people outside of those who just wanted a boys' love. Like kind of like Given could
Yeah.
appeal to like a fairly wide crowd, even if they had no idea what boys' love was or had never watched any before or didn't like that genre in particular. I take it back.
Okay, so I did not watch. I only watched the first episode, and I would have agreed that with that assessment based on the first episode. But I'm assuming you've watched more.
I watched episode 2 yesterday or the day before.
Okay,
and it was just like so in your face that I was like, no, actually, if I'm not saying you definitely won't enjoy it, like if you don't watch much boys' love, but if you're a person who on purpose does not watch boys' love because you don't like the genre, you will still probably not like this.
Yeah.
And that is because I just feel like at least episode 1 did still carry some subtlety to it. It wasn't like, it was obviously like it's explicitly a boys' love series.
Right.
But it was still like it still held its punch, like it didn't hit you over the head with that content.
There was a little more to, I felt like, the characters and the relationships than just hot guy, like,
right.
and the love story aspect of it. Like, they felt like kind of a little more well-rounded characters in the first episode.
And I do think it is going to be still. I'm not saying it's going to be all about like sex or hot guys or whatever, but episode 2 really kind of honed in more on that aspect with like the close-up shots it was doing and the kind of storytelling that it went for in a super, like, I get it's a drama and you would expect a drama to be dramatic from time to time, but they're ramping up the drama this early with the kind of storytelling that's like, I want to be with him, but I cannot. Kind of.
That's episode 2.
That's episode 2. Yeah, like to each other's faces at times, and it was kind of funny.
I did find it interesting. I think at the start of episode 1, they had already been living together for like a year or something. So it's not like
but they had not been, or like not a year. It was like 2 or 3 months, but they had not been talking at all, basically, because one of them would be out with his boyfriend. Right. Half the time, and he was introverted, like an introverted guy anyway, so they just didn't talk. And the other guy just wanted to like go to school and not be bothered and do his.
I mean, either way, as an audience, we have not had time to build that up. Up the drama, right? Okay.
And then episode 2 also revealed that the standoffish guy, the blonde guy, who has the boyfriend, is in like a relationship with an older man. Yeah. And they have he breaks up with him and they have a fight in the car and he gets slapped. Like the blonde guy gets slapped because he called his boyfriend like a pedo, basically. Like actually he did, like no, like not even dancing around it. I think he actually called him, and they bleep it out in the anime, like, you fucking like motherfucking pedo, like. Sorry to all the listeners who are under the age of I don't know, but it was extremely explicit that at least in this character's, I don't know, they didn't spell it out, but at least in the main character's head, that he was being used for sex by an older man. In a kind of, in an obviously exploitative way. And then he got slapped and then they broke up. And then that's when he goes back home and the two guys are now apparently free to
be together,
be more invested in a potential relationship.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I guess that would have. Yeah, you would.
So it escalated. I'm just saying it escalated really quickly. It wasn't subtle about it, and it just seemed like a bit too much this early on.
Yeah, like that felt like you would want to.
It'd be like a mid-season climax.
To get to this kind of emotional climax so quickly, and then immediately ramp down because the next day they're filming a 30-minute thing at school, like for their club. You know, it's a bit tone jumpy as well, to be honest.
Yeah, because there was actually a lot of humor in the first episode too. Like the like all the drama club crew were like, all that was kind of silly, which was kind of fun.
Episode 2 was a lot more serious.
Yeah, it felt like like that part of it also felt, and again, I am far from a BL expert here, but from what I've engaged with, like usually it's not fun and silly, at least to that degree. But yeah, all right. I guess that's kind of disappointing. I mean,
Yeah.
I know people will enjoy that regardless, and
I don't,
but
I'm not saying it's a bad show, and I'm not saying it's a bad BL show. If you like BL, I think you'll probably still enjoy it. I think it's still different in a lot of ways from other mainstream boys' love shows. So by all means, like, you know, watch
Yeah.
it if that's what you're into, because I think it does actually have still quite a lot to offer in that regard. I just don't think it's the kind of show that's going to be a mainstream hit with people who wouldn't normally watch boys' love in the
Yeah.
same way that something like Given was.
Yeah. So in that specific area, that is kind of a disappointment, at least.
Yeah, and that is the disappointing aspect.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
less disappointing. In fact, I would say the exact opposite. Let's talk about Senpai is an Otokonoko. There is a lot to unpack with that title and that word, which I am not going to get into here. I would recommend you go to theglorioblog.com and read Peter's first look post, where they provide some context for it there. I've read other things too. I ended up reading a pretty interesting article from Anime Feminist about this word in relation, and the history of this word in relation to Bridget from Guilty Gear, which I think is probably the first time I ever heard it being used. But yeah, it's depending on the context and how you're using it and everything. It's a complex term, let's say, which I think Peter mentioned in their post. It's probably good that Crunchyroll officially just chose not to translate it and leave it as it is, as its own word. But in the context of this show, what it means is the main character, the senpai in the title, I would say, at least as of the time of this recording, is identifies himself as a boy, and he, although it is very clear that he's figuring that out, as you see in the rest of the episodes, but he chooses to wear a girl's uniform and present as a girl. He has like a long wig with long hair, and he wears a girl's uniform. And right away, the story kicks off with another girl who is his underclassman confessing to him, not aware that. Okay, I do want to make sure I explain this correctly because it's important. She is not aware that he is a guy, but everyone else, at least in his grade, is aware. So he's not keeping it a secret. He's not really keeping it a secret at school, but she just didn't know. She just thought this was a
right, because she's a first year, right? She doesn't know.
Okay.
My senpai is this cool, pretty lady. I want to date her, and confesses, and that's how the show kicks off. And he immediately reveals his identity, and the kind of third part of the show is he also has a childhood friend who is a guy who is secretly in love with him. And if you think this sounds like it could be very bad, you are correct, but it is not, I assure you. All of the sexuality and gender aspects of it are never the joke in any of this, and what you kind of end up with is a bit more of a lighthearted, I don't know if I would call it a romantic comedy, but it's these three friends hanging out, basically, is the kind of premise. And in the midst of that, figuring out, learning more about themselves. And it's a lot of fun, and I appreciate that. The more thing I'll add in just kind of setting up the mood of this show, it's a lot of fun most of the time, but I also appreciate that they don't totally gloss over some of the challenges of, what this boy would be going through in his scenario. So the one scene that everybody has talked about, every posts that I've seen writing about this. The end of episode 1 is the whole episode, he's hanging out at school, and it seems pretty cool because everybody seems mostly cool with like, again, he's not keeping it a secret at school. Everyone seems, mostly cool with it, or just, leaves him alone. But at the end of the day, as he's getting ready to go home, you see he has like a secret locker in a shed somewhere where he has to switch uniforms and go back to being a boy to go home. And he's like, says, goodbye me, and heads home, and kind of implying that, he can't be himself at home. And that's kind of what they get into in episode 2 a bit. But yeah. So anyway, I know that's saying a lot, but I thought it was great. I think this might be my favorite show of the season. Artemis, I if you want to say how you feel, how you were feeling on it, but
it's absolutely my favorite show of the season so far. I haven't watched everything yet that I had intended to watch, and a couple of things are still going to come out. But right now, it is definitely by a decent margin my favorite show of the season. I think, like, despite, or rather probably because of it being so lighthearted, when they do have those like really spaced out, well, emotional moments, it's an absolute gut punch.
Yep.
When they do happen. And they just handle it so well because they do it in I think anime has a problem with dialogue. It's one of my pet peeves of anime that they make dialogue just to fill in a gap of silence because they can't have a good voice actor not talk.
Right.
And that show does not fall into that trap. So even though it is I'm not saying it's necessarily a show that's always quiet, but they don't try to make people say something when there's nothing to say, and when the story can be better told by just a short moment of whatever,
Yeah.
Right.
And so I think what the show really ends up being, like, at its core, is almost like, and these are shows that you and I, Artemis, always love, are the kind of the nice people being nice to each other type of shows.
Yeah.
But they don't like gloss over the challenges that the main kid's facing, but most of the show is these three friends kind of hanging out, and their dynamic is fun because, like, the main kid he's pretty soft spoken and gentle. This girl that confesses to him is very, like, energetic and speaks her mind. And then his childhood friend guy is sort of like he's kind of a punk with a heart of gold kind of guy.
Yeah.
And they just work really well together. And so that feels like the majority of the show, but they blend it in very well with this kind of exploration of sexuality and gender that they're putting in there. And it's very good. The second episode, they convince him to kind of go out in public as a girl for, I think, the first time, to, like, go shopping. And they have a very nice day and everything. But then, they also contrasted with showing his home life, which, again, like, it's interesting because he lives with his mother. I got the impression that it's only his mother. I don't know if they specify, or maybe he has a sister too, but, like, I don't think he has a dad around or something. But she's very, like, traditional. Oh no, don't help me with the cooking. That's not a boy's job, whatever. And so that's why.
Yeah.
They cut to a couple of shots too where he's just sitting on the couch, and then he has to mentally remind himself to sit a different way because the way he's currently sitting would be considered too, like, girly because his legs are close together or whatever, like, and he should be man spreading more, essentially.
Yeah. And it's very, like, it's interesting because, like, his mother is not, like, openly hostile. Like, she's being what she thinks is very kind to him, but it still feels, like, very tense, and they do a good job of, like, balancing that out as well. Although I don't know what they're going to do with at the end of the episode. They do get a little ridiculous with this sometimes, but at the end of episode 2, the girl gave him her handkerchief, which is a cute, like, girly looking handkerchief, and he's afraid that his mom is gonna hide it, so he sticks it under his bed like a porn magazine. Like he said, he kind of says that it's like, oh well, yeah, it's normal to hide things under your mattress or whatever, and of course his mom finds it while cleaning, and I don't know what her actual reaction is going to be because I think that's where the episode ends. But she seemed
it kind of ends with him going home and the house is dark, and then he comes into the kitchen and she's holding the hand and it's like, what is this?
I'm curious to see, because I'm not sure if they're going to play that as a joke, like him being paranoid, or if she's actually mad. We haven't seen enough of her character.
I think this is just my pure guess. I think it's like they've played it as dramatic, obviously, at the end of episode 2, but in episode 3, it's going to be, she's going to assume, or at least like convince herself that because a girl gave it to him, he's hiding stuff from his girlfriend because she thinks that they are dating, right?
You've got a secret girlfriend.
Which is very manly and therefore should be encouraged, right?
Yeah, that's probably they'll probably do something in that direction, right? So
that would be my reflex from hearing about this right now. Is like, to me, I'm like, oh, then that's what will happen, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, I think it's really, I think it's a really good show. I enjoy it both kind of on a more lighthearted comedic level, and also how they're blending in the more serious themes.
Yeah. And I will say I do have one complaint, and it is relatively minor, but it is still a little bothersome. And it was worse. I will say episode 2 did better, but episode 1, I found it jarring. They kept switching the art style, and every time there was a comedic moment, which is often because it is more of a comedy kind of tone, they switched the chibi style, and it happened like every 10 seconds.
Yeah,
I don't mind the actual. Yeah, I don't mind the art switch, but it just happened so many times consistently that I was like, "Can you stop? Can you just give us like 5 minutes?"
I kind of like it. I did notice that they were doing it a lot,
right? A lot.
I feel like what normally happens is, it's pretty common for anime comedy to switch art styles, but they'll usually have like different styles that they can switch to or whatever, and it'll just be like to punch up the joke, right? But yeah, this one they'll just like switch like half the scene over to like the chibi form.
And it happened again. Episode 2 toned it down somewhat, but episode 1 it legit happened every 10 seconds or so at some points, and it was just too much.
It kind of reminded me of you guys remember Amenchu?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Those characters spent probably 75% of the time in their like Muppet face form.
right.
You guys remember?
Yes.
It did kind of remind me of that a little bit. I thought of that, but
I'd actually completely forgotten about that. But yes, that's a good comparison.
Yeah, if you really think about Amenchu and you really think about it in real time, like 75% of the time they were in Muppet face. So yeah. It didn't really bother me, but I definitely see what you're saying. They did that a lot.
They just needed to pull back just a little, just a smidge.
Yeah.
But I think episode 2 kind of had a better balance of that.
Yeah. Well, they had more to do in episode 2. Episode 1 is a lot of like episode 1 was a lot of like sitting around talking in school. So, that's kind of boring if you don't do something, but yeah. All right. So yeah, I mean that show's good. I not perfect. There are probably little criticisms here and there I could have of the content as well, but I think
it's solid. It's a solid 8 for me right now, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's a good. Or Iro, if you're going to force us to do a 5, 1 to 5,
I adhere to my 5-star scale.
For listeners that know, Iro is a very strict adherent to you do 1 to 5 stars, no decimal points,
no 0 stars unless it's like actively offensive. Like,
stick to your assessments. I would put in a 4 out of 5 for the moment, but it's only 2 episodes in. So if we're using the Iro forced no decimals scale,
there's only 5 reactions you can have to say when you really boil it down, and that's like, ugh.
Yeah, You've kind of won me
before.
You've kind of won me over with that. So,
yeah.
All right, good show.
Yeah.
All right, let's go on to talk about dungeon people. I think I might be the only person that watched this. It somehow did not end up on our first look schedule.
I did not watch this, but I have read probably
Yeah.
however much of the manga would have been covered by the first episode or two. So
we did talk about it on our preview show. So the basic premise is there is this rogue thief class lady who is sneaking around this dungeon trying to get to the bottom to find her father. And along the way, an incident happens where she meets the administrator of the dungeon, who is a cute girl with godlike powers.
Mm-hmm.
And this cute girl with godlike powers convinces her to basically work for her, doing work around the dungeon, like resetting traps and putting stuff back in place, like basically, I don't know, manual labor for the dungeon.
Kind of it, right? Like
okay, to be fair, I have not watched episode 2, which is I think episode 2 is gonna be the actual, like, what is the show actually, whereas episode 1 ends with them signing the contract for her to work. Okay. So it's all kind of,
so they've not gone backstage yet.
So I have not actually seen much of what I think the show will actually be, right? But I can kind of project. As I said, we've been doing this for 12
a long time.
We've been doing this for 12 years. I can kind of project where we're going with this. To me, my first thought was, like, what if you took Dungeon Meshi, sucked out all the personality of the characters, had no group chemistry or anything because it's basically one character, one or two characters, and focused entirely on the mechanics of the dungeon and the world building.
Hell yeah, that always works.
Yeah, well, could go. Yeah.
Now, some people might be excited about that. And to be fair, I don't want to say the characters don't have any personality, but the main girl is like deadpan, like doesn't talk much, loner type character, and a lot of I'm sure there will be more actual dialogue in the second episode. Most of the first episode is her inner dialogue being like, okay, well, if this thing happens and this thing happens, I know in the dungeon this will happen, and like explaining the dungeon rules in her head. And I'm like, oh god, just stop, please. I don't care. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I think it's probably going to lean, and Iro, since you've read some of the manga, you'd probably know better at this point, but it seems like it's going to be more of like a almost office comedy type of vibe.
Kinda, but the thing is, like, the stuff you're describing never goes away, right?
But it's always going to be...
It's always, like, about a different aspect of the dungeon, right?
Right, so the main focus is always going to be, look at my dungeon world building that I've wrote. Right.
I think some, like, from what I recall, like, it tries to get a lot of comedy out of the, like... From my perspective as an adventurer, the dungeon works like this. What do you mean it works like this on the back end? That's weird and silly, right?
Yeah. Which is kind of fun, but not
right.
I don't know, not something I normally want to watch. I mean, the only part I found amusing is the cute girl admin who has godlike powers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they kind of reveal she has godlike powers by, like, she's like, okay, well, they're having a conversation. She basically reveals she's the boss of the dungeon. So, like, if you get to the bottom floor, you have to fight me. And she's like, all right, well, just skip all that. You can fight me now. And if you win, you can
Good
leave.
Fucking luck, right? Yeah.
If you win, you can leave. And if you lose, you have to work for me. And she's like, okay, fine. And she gives everything she's got. This tiny little girl who just parries everything with her staff and is like, ooh, you're very strong. And then, she gets just totally obliterates her in one shot, right? So I found that amusing. But, other than that, I don't know. It seems like it's fine. Like, I don't want to rag on it too much. I will say I did appreciate the art style is very simple, but some of the scenes were actually pretty well animated.
Okay.
Maybe because the art style is simple, they can kind of animate it a little better. So there was some of the scenes actually look pretty nice. But again, the characters themselves kind of seem pretty simple, but it seems solid. I don't know if it's enough for me to keep watching it. So there will be people I think that will enjoy it. If you're one of those type of sickos
Uh-huh.
that is
I
really
just
into.
love anything with dungeon in the title. I
Yeah.
watch everything with dungeon in the title.
So, all right.
Hmm.
So what country did you guys travel to
Oh,
watch
boy.
this next show?
Good question. I'm not 100% sure. We were talking about Grendizer U, the reboot of Grendizer, the Go Nagai property, right? Which is a sequel to Mazinger, is my understanding.
Yes. Grendizer is, on paper, the third entry in the Mazinger canon, I suppose. Before it was eventually spun off into its own sort of separate entity, basically. And yes, Grendizer U, it purports to be an anime remake of the original Grendizer story. And yeah, this one's got a lot of interesting baggage, maybe. A lot of interesting factoids attached to it. Like the fact that, yes, apparently it is only streaming in the Middle East.
And Japan, right? Japan and the Middle East.
Yes, outside of Japan, the Middle
yeah.
East. Yes.
Yeah.
Our understanding is that Grendizer was huge in the country of Lebanon. This is another classic case of this anime got big in a specific region of the world because of just the happenstance of what got licensed there. If you
Right.
Similar examples are like Saint Seiya and King of Fighters in Mexico, or Lupin in Italy.
Yeah.
Big O and Outlaw Star in America.
Speed Racer in America. Even,
Grendizer is that for many parts of the Middle East, I guess.
Is like Grendizer specifically, or just Mazinger
specifically
in general?
Grendizer?
Okay, yes, that's even more. That's even more wild. Yeah,
we're dealing with one of those.
Okay.
So, in addition to that, Grendizer U is being produced by none other than the studio Gaina, the legally distinct entity from the
we mentioned
recently
that.
bankrupt Gainax.
Yeah, we mentioned that on the preview. Yes, definitely not Gainax.
Definitely not.
Yes, legally distinct, as stated in the closure statement by Gainax.
Yep.
With character art done by Sadamoto.
Definitely not Gainax. No
the
connection to
anime
Gainax.
certainly doesn't look like it. And the chief director is none other than Mitsuo Fukuda, who is primarily known as the primary director and creator of Gundam Seed.
Hooray.
So I take it you guys didn't like this. Is that what we're getting at?
It was. I would not say I liked it. I would say I was amused by the novelty of the situation in which it was produced. Right. I was like, why is this? This is weird. I'm enjoying it on the level of, this is kind of a weird thing, huh?
Which is Iroh's very nice way of saying he did not enjoy the show
No,
itself.
I did not enjoy
the
the show.
context of
Exactly.
the show
Yes.
and how it was created. So here's the thing, right? Yes, blah blah blah. I'm the mecha guy. I love giant robots, etc., right? But I am not some mindless slop eater. All right, like I just expressed my disgust with Gundam Seed. I will do so on every GLORIO chat till the end of time if given the opportunity. I will gladly shit down Mitsuo Fukuda's mouth.
Great music though. Good music.
Hey, Koei Tanaka, great.
Yeah.
That dude's been around for ages, and he'll get it done.
He worked on
I'm
Seed.
just saying the ED is still on my MP3
I
player.
don't know if he worked on Seed, but Kohei Tanaka is just.
Sorry, no wait. What's still on your MP3 player, Artemis?
the ending theme of Gundam Seed.
Okay, look, it's not bad. All right, look, nobody denies that Gundam Seed had a couple of banger OPs.
TM Revolution, right?
Yeah, TM Revolution, yeah.
Hey, there you go. Yeah.
But anyways, so the main thing that stands out about Grendizer, like for better or worse, is just it doesn't look very good. Like it's it's not a very well produced show. The character animation is kind of stiff. It's not quite Get a Robo arc levels of bad, but like for a first episode, it doesn't look great. And the mechs are CG, as you might assume, in this day and age, and they're not even the worst CG robots I've ever seen. But like, there's not really a sense of like, you compare it to say like Braver, right, which aired two seasons ago at this point.
Two seasons.
2 seasons ago.
Yeah, earlier this year.
Yeah, sure. Let's go with that. Yeah.
It's not even like there's not even a lot of there's not a lot of like panache or style to like Grendizer, and like it's not just because it's an old series. It's not just because the designs are old. Like we have watched like modern takes or more modern takes on Super Robot stuff that has like been very dynamic and cool and exciting. And Grendizer,
Bravern looked pretty good. I mean, that style.
Yeah. I think Grendizer just it feels very by the numbers, and I have a lot of respect for like these old Super Robot franchises, right? Like, Mazinger obviously deserves a lot of credit for establishing as much about this genre as it has, but like, going back to like or watching a remake of one of these old shows does kind of remind you, it's like, oh yeah, without spectacle or like a sense of style, it is kind of a generic alien invasion story. And the robot shows up, I would not even call it that cool of a move, and then the credits play, right?
The moves back then could only be so cool. Let's be real.
Right, yeah, and yeah, it's like, it's not
offensively bad. It's just kind of dull, bad. Right?
Yeah, I think so, right? It's just kind of like the story goes that because it's a sequel to Mazinger, that like basically Koji Kabuto, the original protagonist of Mazinger, discovers, or technically his girlfriend Sayaka discovers, an alien crash landing in which an unconscious man is found, right? And they name him Daisuke, and it turns out that Daisuke is actually Duke Fleed from the planet Fleed, an alien prince, monarch, deposed royalty, who who believes, based on his memories, that he was responsible for the devastation of the planet he came from, and was essentially either fled or exiled from his planet, along with his, abominably powerful robot Grendizer. And it's a classic Super Robot thing, right? God or Devil Mazinger, right? Like the thing that like Evangelion plays on, that has existed as the fabric of robot anime since its inception, right? Is that the robot is in and of itself does not bear any inherent morality whatsoever, right? The robot merely represents power and the will to achieve it, and what it does with that power is decided by the will of the pilot, right? Very
robots don't kill people. People kill people.
Yes. Functionally, that has always been kind of the core subtext of mecha, right? Like,
yes,
like,
or the whole like, the mecha is a monster, right?
Yes, as a monster, right? Like, and that has always been sort of a subtext in Mazinger. Again, it's Go Nagai, the writer of Devilman, so like this has always been there, right? Mazinger, again, its appellation is God or Devil Mazinger. Grendizer intentionally takes on a more like intentionally demonic appearance, right? It has these devil horns that sprout from the sides of its head. It's probably meant to be the like darker and edgier Mazinger. But like, we watched like Mazinger Infinity a few years ago, and I think that was a much more fun, like, nostalgia trip of like, this is what makes Mazinger great and compelling. While still kind of being adapted for a more modern audience and sensibilities. So I think it can be done. I think you can, look, again, Braver, right? Like, you can, in fact, teach an old dog new tricks. And I think Grandizer's just an old dog, and it's not even a particularly good-looking one. So what is there left to really show up here for? Like...
Yeah.
I like a good Super Robot, but I am not like that hungry for one that I will watch a bad one.
Right. I'm sort of... to be clear, I agree with everything you just said. Also, because of the situation in which the show exists, I'm like, I'm not in the target audience for this. And, it's like, this is probably the equivalent of, like, what, they make a new Star Trek animated series or some shit, right? That's like, this is a known property that people of a certain age or of a certain genre affiliation know about, and look, it's back, and you can watch it on this Arabic streaming service, that you have over there. And so it's like, I assume it's sort of more geared towards that, right? It's like,
right. Like, I think
it's not even streaming here, right? Like,
yeah.
it's not
I mean,
for
I
us.
mean,
Yeah.
America barely has any nostalgia for Mazinger, no less
Right.
Grendizer, right? Like, Mazinger never made it here, I mean, none of the old super robots really made it to America, other than, like...
Getter Armageddon, I think, like...
I was gonna go even older than that, your Go Lions of the world.
Yeah.
Voltron, exactly.
Robotech.
So I guess it's like, I think it's like...
Robotech is not super robot, though, right? Like,
no.
Yeah.
But, so I think that's a thing, right? Is I think if you grew up with this show, maybe there's something to it. Like, maybe you can overlook its kind of shoddy production values. I don't know how the original Grendizer looked. It was a 70s super robot anime, so my assumption is not very, but...
Yeah.
I mean, are you guys basically saying it's a nostalgia thing?
I think so.
Yeah.
Like, you probably go, oh shit, it's Duke Fleet and Maria Grace and Hikaru. I don't know, right? It's like it's
Geyser's using
right?
those special moves. Yeah.
Yeah. He's using his like electro horn attack that doesn't even look that cool.
Yeah.
It's. I think it can only really trade on being a nostalgia thing, because I just think that like it doesn't really have enough to stand on its own 2 feet otherwise.
Yeah.
Was there the old Grendizer anime, or was it just...
There was,
yes.
The
in the
UFO
like
Robo Grendizer.
Yeah, in like 75 or something.
Okay.
Well, and then it aired it aired in Lebanon in 79. So
if it was 70s, then that might have needed an upgrade.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. All right.
Also, it's original OP. Like even the original Grendizer OP is like not even as good as the Mazinger OP, if we're being honest.
Yeah, I mean, 70s is really old. Like that's like...
Yeah, I mean, look, man, I am the guy who has watched the
pre-Gundam. Like,
yes, as someone who has watched the original TV Gundam. Look, man, even that thing's kind of hard to get through. That's 79.
Yeah.
There were a lot of... I feel like it wasn't until the 80s that we started getting like the real like higher quality type of anime stuff. But
yeah,
in terms of like production values and things, right? But okay.
Yeah.
Are you guys gonna keep chasing this one down, or are we this one?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Not enough. Not even enough to get mad about, like on some of these other.
No, yeah, I would rather track down what Shin Mazinger Z or whatever.
Yes, we instead started like after watching
Mazinger Z, the Impact.
We just started talking about other like modern takes on Mazinger, and there was one directed by one Imagawa back in like 2009. Mr. G Gundam. So honestly, that sounds a lot more appealing than this.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay, let's move along and talk about Atri, My Dear Moments. This looks like a visual novel.
It is apparently a visual novel. I'm going to describe to you the sequence of events of me starting to watch this show.
Okay.
Which is, I saw a bit of the plot summary.
Oh, this is good.
And went, oh, this seems cool. So it's in like in a post-apocalyptic world. The sea level has risen. So
relatable.
Yeah. So, people live on islands, like smaller islands. There are a lot of boats. And this is the main character is on his boat. He lost one of his legs in an accident. And he's trying to save up money to like get a cybernetic replacement. like a fancy prosthetic leg. So he's like a scavenger, a salvager.
Sounds pretty sick so far. Yeah.
There's like a hot older lady who gives him
I would
jobs.
watch this so far.
So that he goes down and there's a robot girl in a box.
All right.
And I turned off the episode because I was like, wow.
That was essentially my reaction as well.
I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. But yeah.
All right, fuck it. I'm going to use this excuse to derail this. Arrow, how did you make it through the first episode of Outlaw Star if you can't handle a robot girl in a box?
Dude, Outlaw Star has, Jim Hawkins.
The coolest anime ever made. Gene Starwood and Jim Hawkins.
Yeah, like Outlaw Star is old, right? I don't know. It's cool. It's fun. Other than having girl in the box, well-worn anime trope. Sometimes you look at the girl in the box.
That's how you pick up on it.
And you see that she's in a school uniform that's too big on her and has the big glowy eyes, and you go, oh no.
Not this type of girl in a box.
Right, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, Artemis, you said basically the same for you. Right.
Well, where's my boy in a box?
Huh?
Where's my boy in a box?
Can we really have true equality?
I don't. For the record, I do not want a boy in a box. I'm just tired of girls in boxes. That's all.
Okay.
It's not. I will say. I know it's like a very low bar to set here. I will say that at least it's not on a Chobits level. She's so memoryless or helpless that she can't even do anything beyond say her own name.
She's like a peppy child.
She is a more the more classic kind of Genki schoolgirl type of character that is pretty autonomous in terms of she can talk, she can walk, she can.
What a high bar we're clearing here.
Well, no, but I still have frustrations with Chobits in case however many years later. But so low as lower bar as it is, she is at least an autonomous character. Essentially, is what I'm saying. So, and that is kind of important. In terms of anime specifically, I feel like to mention. But yes, she is still a girl in a box, and she still has to follow orders of her master, which in this case is her master died a month ago, and now their only living relative is the main character, who does not look at all like the main character from Solo Leveling.
Oof!
Oh my goodness. Yeah,
and. Yeah,
I just saw this is written by Juki Hinata. Damn, following up
and Makoto Kato is directing. So the Bloom to You crew over at Troika.
Yeah, okay.
Hey, Troika, what if instead of this you made a new season of The Case Files of Lord Hamele II?
Yeah.
I'm trying to see if I. Oh, okay. This is the Grisaya people.
Oh.
That makes a lot of sense. Although this does not appear to be an Arrowgate.
Right. It's I don't know. I mean, Arrowgate. Anyway. The Arrowgate of that level of quality, I assume, no longer quite exists. Not like in the early aughts.
The Grisaya is kind of the only big one that I remember of the past 10 years or something, but I don't really care. What were you saying, Ira? I'm sorry.
If instead of a girl in a box, we had a show about rising sea levels, flotillas of boats, and then a boy arrived in a box, and the box was a robot. I
was workshopping a way to tie this to Gargantia. This
characters were designed by Naruko Hanaharu. And we had Gen Urobuchi on writing.
Are we saying that Gargantia was good?
I will stand by that. That was a good show, all right?
I not go that far.
I go that far. Fine. But it's this reading the description of Atri made me go oh yeah, Gargantia had a cool aesthetic.
So Artemis, you're a Gargantia defender. That's
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I like the show. It's a good show.
I think
Chamber
it was mostly
was the
good.
GOAT.
Oh, sure. Oh, sure. Yeah, of course. I'm not arguing this. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, Archery is just. I did watch the whole episode.
Okay.
I'm not saying it was. I've definitely seen worse. I'm sure we've all seen worse. I'm sure we all will see worse in this season alone by a significant amount. But it's not a good show. I'm confused as to why it exists as an anime now. Is the visual novel new, or is it?
It is from 2020, so
Okay, so it's not a retro
right.
title by any means. Okay.
Although I think the concept of this type of visual novel even
Feels
if it was made in
retro, right?
2020,
Like-
feels retro.
Yes, that's the thing. It does.
You could have told me this thing was made in
premise-
2004. I would have believed you.
Yeah.
Yep.
I didn't know it was a visual novel before watching. I just assumed it was probably a light novel, if anything. But I didn't really think about it. I didn't read up on it. I just kind of had a bunch of shows I'd bookmarked and started watching it.
Yeah.
And it did definitely feel like even if you had said it was late 90s, I would have been like, oh yeah, that tracks.
Yeah, it's got that vibe to it, right? Look.
Yeah, it doesn't look retro, which would probably maybe even help salvage it a little if it did, because then it would have a little bit of leeway, I feel like. But as is, I'm quite baffled as to why this is being marketed now.
Yeah.
When it.
The VN fans are still out there. They're still making Muv-Love adaptations.
Hey,
right?
look, I'm waiting for the Mahotsuka no Yoru movie to pop out.
Is that actually happening, or you're just
If
hoping
they
for
were
one?
working on that, and I look at the concept of that and go, "There's too much in that visual novel to put into one movie."
Yeah,
but
Yeah.
I'm gonna cut that off before we get into Tsukihime. Maybe next time.
God damn you! Yeah, I'm down here banging on the window.
I think we'll probably have time next time. I think the fact that we spent more time talking about other shows is probably telling on this one. So
It's all it needs to. But yes, I will not be watching more personally of this.
Yeah, we can move along. All right, let's talk about Shoushimin, How to Become Ordinary, aka We Have Hyoka at Home.
Which yeah.
I did not.
We have Hyoka, but if the main characters were apparently delinquents,
Are they supposed to be delinquents? They're
Are they
so
supposed to
boring.
he's supposed to be like an ex, like a former delinquent of some, or maybe just he skipped school. I don't know what the definition of delinquent is, but I think it's implied that he used to be not a good guy in some way.
He's so milquetoast now that I'm like,
right?
Okay, I guess.
I mean, it basically boiled down to the same concept of high school, very, very extremely low stakes mysteries. Is that?
Yeah, there's this guy and he knows a girl and they hang out and they solve random mysteries that are barely mysteries, right? The first
this
episode
is literally the description of Hyoka, but yes, go on.
like the first episode is basically she wants to go to the sweet store to get the limited cake,
of course,
before a certain time before it sells out. But he got roped in by the student council to look for some girl's bag, right, along with 3 other shady looking students. And this whole episode is like, where's this girl's bag? Why did somebody hide this girl's bag? Who could have done this? And it's just,
and they have to solve it in time
like
to
how
get the
Hyoka
cake.
was, right? And, yeah,
Yes.
and it's like, and then my understanding is like then it will spin off. This the causes related to this mystery will spin off into like a larger mystery that will take up perhaps the amount of time as one novel. But
Right.
yeah, and then they go get their cakes and everything's hunky dory, and then some delinquent steals their bike and knock the cakes over. And my understanding is like whatever these delinquents are up to that caused one to steal their bike is like probably what's going to be the mystery for the rest of for the next few episodes, right?
That's already more intense than anything that happened in Hyoka, but yeah.
it's just everything is in like letterboxed. It's just kind of, I found it a bit boring, right? Because it's like I don't have any stakes in this mystery. He probably should have just left and got the cake instead of running around doing this shit. Like,
yeah,
like, sure, maybe the like weirdly intense student council president's like, "Hey, I need your help for 30 minutes." And it's like, fine, man, but my girlfriend wants to get the cake. I gotta go. It just is kind of whatever.
I mean, and I keep name checking Hyoka because it's the same author, right? But
yes, and so
in that show, in that show, a lot of that show, as much as I liked Hyoka, a lot of it was pretty boring. Like,
so like, let me pull up Hyoka here.
I cannot get excited about finding some girl's bag. Like, that's I don't know. But Artemis, what did you think?
Well, I didn't know again before watching that it was by the same person who wrote the original Hyoka. But when I watched it, I just assumed that it was by the same, like the anime had the same, some of the, even if it wasn't Kyoto Animation, they had some of the same team on it. And then I looked it up and realized, like, oh, that's why it's so much like Hyoka. Because it does have a very, like, the premise aside, it has a very similar character design aesthetic to it. Minus that, you know, squeaky clean Kyoto Animation aesthetic,
right?
With the sparkly eyes and the random like supernaturalist cuts to long flowy hair and such. It's fine. Yeah. I didn't not like it.
I guess the good old double negative endorsement.
The most lukewarm response I can give. I think I haven't watched episode 2 yet, and I think I will at least watch episode 2.
Okay.
I think I want to like it more mostly because of the female lead.
Yeah.
Because she like has a bit more depth to her. Like there's obviously a bigger mystery. There's a bigger mystery there than there is the mysteries they're going around solving about what happened to make her so kind of
detached.
What's the word? Detached, but also like kind of vulnerable. And like she doesn't like the main guy keeps trying to step in to protect her in some way, but it's not really clear from what exactly. And then anytime some stranger approaches her, even if it's not in an angry way or anything, she kind of reflexively takes a step back, or, you know, like little things like that make you think, oh, okay, so something happened like to her or to them that's made her a lot more fearful in some ways of any kind of social interaction. And I want to know what that is. Like, I'm interested in that character drama aspect, but I don't care about the mysteries of that they're actually going to solve.
On the flip side, that just reminded me, wasn't there an episode in Hyoka where Chitanda was going to like fist fight somebody or something? I'm trying to remember.
I think there was like a school, like it was a school culture festival or something, and she was having beef with her classmates or something.
Yeah, she was ready to fight somebody, which
was a really good. I remember that just because I appreciated her character a lot.
But so the first Shoushimin novel was written after the second. I should say released after the second Hyoka novel, but before the Hyoka novel, that is the school festival. So, therefore,
that's right.
Man, that's wild.
Therefore, it is before Hyoka. This novel exists before Hyoka got good.
That's wild that he would be writing both of them at the same time, considering
it's
how
it's not that weird.
Similar they are. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how many. Maybe he's just got a lot of mundane high school mysteries in stock that he's got to get out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think this show is one that I could enjoy if it went a certain angle with leaning into the character drama more than the day-to-day like small mysteries.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's going to like I'm sure they'll go into it more. I just don't think that's going to be the focus, or if it is, it's not going to be the focus until like midway, and I'm not going to watch 6 or 7 episodes waiting for something to quote unquote get good. So
yeah.
All right. Well, I guess we'll see if that goes anywhere. It would be interesting to have a show like that actually does have a little more overarching plot, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's move on and talk about Mayonaka Punch. Did anybody else watch this, or is it just me? I know Zig watched it, but I don't know if any of you guys watched it.
I did not. It kind of.
I think I watched it
reminded
with
me
Zig.
too much. Oh, what?
I think I watched it with Zig. If this is the show I'm thinking of, go ahead. Sorry.
Ira, so you don't remember?
Yeah, the fact you don't remember is a little...
Probably.
I think it reminded me too much of the bad girls band Cry from last season.
Okay, G.
Thing,
okay,
right?
G. Let me try to sell you on this.
That one.
What if it wasn't? What if it was more like Girls Band Cry and not the Jellyfish show?
Okay, so you're telling me these girls are dirtbags? They're bad people?
Absolutely.
Okay. Hey, now you got my attention.
So, one of the first things I thought of when the main character of the show gets introduced, and I'll get to the premise in a second, but one of the first things I thought of when the main character gets introduced is how do we get back-to-back seasons with a main character that is this obnoxious to the level of Mina from Girls Band Cry, that is so much of a failure at life in back-to-back seasons, and I kind of liked it. Like
the age of the girl failure has arrived.
Yes,
right. Like the main character of the show is introduced watching a video of her the rest of her channel canceling her because she punched one of them on stream.
Yes. So
and she's so pissed that they're kicking her out that she runs to their house and punches them on that stream.
Yeah. So let me get to the premise. That's pretty good. So it's this group of girls that had like a fake YouTube channel, and they would do live streams and stuff. And yes, I think the actual title of the episode is like the canceled girl and something. So like part of the intro is like the other girls doing the YouTube apology video.
I messed up.
We're sorry that violence showed up on our stream. Right.
No, to be clear, she's not apologizing for punching anybody.
Oh no, I know.
They're apologizing to the audience for what happened, and that's when she shows up again to punch them in the face again. But
I think the least realistic thing you've told me so far is that the girl who committed on-screen violence wouldn't have like a hugely popular solo career on Kick.
Well, yeah, that was a different show recently where the guy was filming himself fighting. That show was awful. Anyway, so she gets kicked out of the group. She gets canceled, and she does decide to make her own channel, but she can't quite figure it out because she's basically just trying to game the algorithm. She doesn't care about making content or anything. She's just like a total. This ends up going into dirtbag comedy. This is what I'm trying to get at, because she's awful and it's great. So
all right,
so she's trying to game the system, whatever. She can't figure it out. But meanwhile, as the twist into this, there is apparently vampires in this world.
Okay,
and this is where we mix in my Call of the Night connections,
and they stream apparently.
No,
they don't.
So this vampire girl wakes up after like 20 years or something, and she's hungry, and she has this vision of a girl in her dreams that she wants to suck her blood, and it is the main girl. And as fate would have it, the main girl is trying to film herself in a spooky abandoned hospital to boost her channel. She runs into this vampire who is looking for blood in an abandoned hospital somewhere. I don't know how that's going to work, but and they have their fated meeting, and ultimately it ends with them teaming up to basically have the vampire on the channel as they're hanging out in the middle of the night, like filming their midnight hanging out, basically. So it's like it's very much like and there's some kind of promise about being able to drink her blood or something. The premise very much mixes with like the same premise as Call of the Night, which is the
sure
the guy having some kind of arrangement to get his blood drank or something, and also hanging out all night, and basically, most of the plot being them hanging out in the middle of the night. I will admit, this sounds like it was target focused at my particular taste of anime.
Mm-hmm.
So other people's opinion may vary.
Shows like that this season, in theory.
Yes,
in theory,
there are a couple of shows like that this season, but I do think if you like the sort of dirtbag comedy, girls behaving badly type of thing, that is kind of where they're going with it, because the vampire girl is also awful in a good way. She just wants to drink some blood, and so the other third character, she has a tiny little girl who's her servant or something, who I think is also a vampire, and she just murders people. It's in a fun way. So I don't think episode 2 is not out yet. I don't think, as of recording. So I think that's going to really establish more of the tone of the show, because most of episode 1 was kind of setting up the background.
Right.
So the episode 1 ends with them basically agreeing to make the channel, but we don't really get to see them hanging out much or anything next. So that's really going to be more of the make or break what happens, giving it the three episode test. But I had a lot of fun with the first episode personally. So the only thing I don't love, and I said this in the preview, I don't love the art style.
Right.
It's very and not just because it's just my preference toward, I don't really like the kind of cutesy kind of look to it, but also it's very bright and colorful and in your face, and it's supposed to be a show that's hanging out in the middle of the night. And one of my favorite things about Call of the Night was the very moody use of color, and it's very subtle and kind of more I guess down to earth, that I felt really matched the mood. I don't know how much mood they're going to be going for. The fact that they're just hanging out at night is probably not really going to be much of a factor, and it's more just going to be dirtbag comedy type stuff, which is fine. I love that, but yeah, it's not going to be the same vibes as far as the mood of being, capturing that feeling of being, hanging out at night or whatever. So
yeah.
But yeah, I am looking forward to watching more of it. I hope they actually pull it together in the next episode or two. So
yeah.
I mean, hey, sounds like something that might be worth checking out, I guess.
I'll keep everybody informed on that one.
Yeah. Keep us informed.
All right. Let's talk about Day with My Stepsister. I actually don't remember what this is at all, but Artemis, you said you watched it and it was surprisingly not bad.
This is clearly the season where you get a bunch of titles that sound terrible, and sound like you want to just throw shit at the screen, and end up being actually pretty good.
Yeah.
This is not as good, surprising good as the Senpai show, but it's kind of trending still in that direction, at least, because based on the title, I had definitely expected, if not an outright ecchi show, then at least an overtly sexual one, where it's basically a male fantasy of getting to be with your stepsister.
Yeah, the stepsister
I guess that's
thing.
Yeah, right. Sure,
I've got a new stepsister and she's super hot.
And she happens to be amazing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So he gets a new stepsister, and it turns out she is pretty hot.
Okay, so
so the premise also does not lend itself to me thinking that it would be a good show. And I am gonna assume that they end up together by the end of the series, and romantically, at least, if not sexually.
What else would happen, I guess.
Right, exactly. I'm just going to assume that. But the storytelling is actually surprisingly subtle in a lot of ways that I just did not expect. I don't know why I watched this to begin with. It was just there, so I watched it. But it's... I'll give you an example of what I mean. Towards the end of the episode, it's the girl who moves into his house, right? Because previously she lived in a tiny, like, beat up old apartment with her mum, and so now that her mum and her her husband are now married, they've moved in to live with the guy's family because they have a larger place, a newer place. And there's a scene towards the end of the episode where she is just trying to figure out how the fuck the light switches work. Right? Like,
right.
And I don't know, something, and not a word of dialogue is spoken in that scene because at this point everyone else has gone to bed and she's just up. She's had her bath and she's eaten dinner and she's going to bed to sleep. And it's just like a solid minute of absolute silence as she walks trying to figure out like what light switches. And it doesn't even show her, it shows her walking in and out of the frame. It doesn't follow her even. It just shows her walking in and out of the frame and various lights switching on and off around the kitchen area and like the little bar area and stuff. And she finally gets it and goes to sleep. Like walks off to sleep. And that moment is a really good example of what I mean when I say that isn't anime good when there's just no dialogue? Isn't anime really good when no one talks?
Sometimes,
Yeah. And this is that kind of show that is actually very quiet.
Okay.
There's not there. I mean, there are quite a few. The cast is a reasonable size, so when people are together, there's a reasonable amount of dialogue. But it's definitely not a show that's loud or flashy in that way. And because both of the main characters aren't especially extroverted, and she in particular, purposefully has cultivated an image for herself where she knows that people will talk about her in a negative way because she dresses in a way that others would consider overly provocative for Japan, like for a school, a school kind of culture. And she just kind of keeps to herself. Like she's not interested in conversing with other people to begin with. And he just wants to, like, he works and he studies, and that's just kind of his life. And so neither of them are especially talkative people, and that just lends itself to a really quiet tone. And even when they're together, they're talking pretty quietly to each other. There's no kind of yelling drama happening in the background. And
it sounds like it's a more like natural type of organic.
It's a surprisingly down-to-earth show that has kind of its slightly more comedic moments, but it's definitely not a raucous comedy of the kind that you'd expect by the title and the premise. And while I'm sure they will end up together, at the moment there's pretty much zero sexual tension between them, which is kind of nice. Like he's noticed that he has a stepsister who others and he himself probably would consider beautiful, right?
Right.
But it doesn't really lean into that either. Like it's not really a show that is interested in getting inside his head and going, haha, hot stepsister, score, like or anything like that. If anything, it's his coworker who's like, so hey, I heard you had a hot sister now. Like, isn't that cool? And he's like,
They don't. It sounds like they're not doing the thing where she comes out of the bath in just a towel and he's like all flustered.
No.
And then
there's a scene where they discuss with each other who goes first in the bath, and like
so that doesn't happen.
Is to go first. And they don't show either of them in the bath, and it's amazing.
Wow.
The bars we set for these shows.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, but that's it. They literally.
But no, yes, I'm with you. Like that says a lot. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, can this stepsister? Can she walk? Can she talk? Can she?
She can. Oh, let me tell you.
Up and down,
She can walk. She can talk. She can cook. She can say her name. It's amazing.
Clearing all the bars. Yeah.
But the other thing is too the whole aspect of why she dresses the way she does, why she acts the way she does outside of school. There's all kinds of rumors of her flying around at school because of the way she dresses. Like, oh, I heard that she works in the red light district, and I heard that she was seen outside of a love hotel at 3 a.m. kind of thing. When this. either isn't true or she's doing it on purpose because she wants to make people just leave her the fuck alone, is actually pretty interesting. They haven't really said still why exactly this is the case, but it definitely has a lot more depth to it than I would have guessed going in.
Yeah. Okay.
So I would actually. It also looks pretty good. This is Studio Dean. It's a very good looking Studio Dean show. I know they're very
Yeah, I feel like
swing wildly from one to another depending on the mood.
I feel like Dean, like years ago, Dean was kind of known as a lower quality studio. I feel like
kind of joke, yeah.
I feel like they're like last 5+ years they've had some pretty nice looking shows.
Yeah, and this is one of their up there. You know, it's not a show that I would absolutely gush about visually, but it is a very still good looking show.
Yeah.
The quality of the storytelling and the visuals did surprise me in a good way. And I would actually recommend people give it a go.
Okay.
Apparently, this is based on the creator made YouTube videos that are like in a sort of visual novel style format of these characters talking to each other.
Interesting. That's a new one. YouTube channel adaptation.
Yeah.
YouTube channel VN adaptation. Interesting. Hey, if it's good, it's good, right? I mean,
I guess. It's just a weird thing.
Yeah. It does make me think this truly is the season of shows that sound awful but are either not bad or actually good, because I was thinking of, like, I didn't put it on this list because I didn't feel like there was really too much to say about it, but I watched that Pseudo Harem show, and you can go read my first Lit post for the full breakdown, but like the premise of that was like the girl is like pretending to be different like anime stereotype girls, and so it's like he has a harem because this one girl is pretending to be all these different girls. And I'm like, oh god, that sounds awful. But then it turned out to be actually okay. Like, I don't know if I want to watch more, but like, what it really turned out to be, it basically is like a dumb inside joke between the two of them, and then most of the like, they don't take it seriously at all, and most of the time it's just them hanging out and it was kind of like a very like sort of vignettes, not connected sort of scenes of them just hanging out, and I always appreciate in those types of shows when the main guy isn't like an incel, like an introverted incel guy. So he's actually like kind of extroverted and has friends, and he's kind of a goofball, which I like a lot more than the quiet loner kid that this girl comes in and saves his life or whatever. Like, no, like they actually have like their own sort of things going.
So you're telling me that he can also walk, he can talk,
all I ask,
go on unhinged screeds.
All I ask is that the two main characters be human beings with normal human being functions. Is that too much? So anyway, let's move on and talk about another weird show geared toward my interests. I still have it here as Red Cat Ramen. Officially on Crunchyroll, it is Ramen Akaneko. This show is weird, man. It's
good, weird bad.
It's not even. I guess it's not even really that weird, but I do like it. Let's put it that way. Let's start there. The concept is,
despite
there. We'll get to. There is a despite. We'll get to that in a moment. But there is a girl who applies for a job at a ramen shop. The ramen shop is run by cats. By cats, I mean they are like chibi cartoon cats, but they have the same intelligence and emotions as humans. Like, they're basically people. And
are they human size?
No, they're not cat size either. They're like They're like maybe like 2 or 3 feet tall. Like,
So they're like palicos, basically.
This from Monster Hunter.
Yeah, from Monster Hunter.
yes,
They're
that's actually
the size of human children.
yes. So if you play Monster Hunter, you'll get that reference. But yes, they're like child size basically, except for the one like tiger that's like a real ass tiger that works in the back.
It's very good.
Right.
It's a pretty good visual gag. You have just a bunch of cartoony cats and then a relatively photorealistic tiger.
Who is voiced by Sayori Hayami, which is even funnier. But yes. So, and none of this is even attempted to be explained or anything, which I love. Like, doesn't matter why they're cats and why there's a real tiger, why they're running a ramen shop. Doesn't matter. It is what it is. Just accept it. And it's weird because there's that aspect of it, but then the actual content of the show is kind of more about how this would actually work in real life.
Huh.
So like the first episode is like a major plot point is how they have to constantly brush themselves so that they don't get cat hair in the ramen.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that would be a real deal breaker, I gotta be honest.
And so one of the first jobs that this girl gets is basically brushing them. So like in between, shifts or when they're on break or whatever, she can brush them so they don't get, because they're like, we have tiny cat hands. It's hard for us to brush each other. So
Fair enough.
Right.
they have to. It's so much easier for the human to do it. So that's one of the first things she does, and it does lead to this great bit where this like just Yakuza-gun guy shows up and starts complaining about cat hair in his ramen. And this gets to this is the despite you may have been referencing G. The main cat is voiced by none other than voice actor Kenjiro Suda, the hardest
Your
working
friend
man
and mine.
show business.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
Listeners may recall I have beef with Kenjiro Suda. I believe every show I've watched is cursed to be bad that he is in
His
it.
name is attached to a lot of bad anime. It's kind of hard to get around.
Footnote post 2000 and whatever.
Right.
The
Yes,
cutoff.
any of the
After it invaded.
ever since Apare Ranman, any of this, and specifically the shows I've watched, the shows I haven't watched are apparently fine, but any of the shows I've watched with him in them have been bad since 2020. So, despite that, this might be the one role I'm willing to accept him as, this hard-boiled ramen shop owner who I think, at least in episode 1 or 2, each episode they've brought in some sort of obnoxious asshole customer for him to get mad at so he can do the Kenjiro Suda voice. And and like in that context, it's very good. So like in the first episode, there's this like Yakuza-gun guy that's just like, there's hair. What are you gonna in my ramen? What are you gonna do about it? And he's like, they have a sign that's like, you might get hair in your ramen, so sorry.
This is your,
so he's like basically tapping the sign and asking him to leave. So yeah, it's kind of like a mix of stories, little scenes based on the kind of weird things that would happen if tiny cats were actually running a ramen shop, mixed in with the main girl kind of trying to adjust to this weird job that she has. And there's a little bit of conflict because there's this one like bratty little white cat that hates her, which is a very cat-like thing to do. And part of it is her trying to come to accept that there's a human working at the cat cafe. There's also been some takes on this that I don't think are entirely unfounded, that might be looking at this as a metaphor for like undocumented immigrants working at restaurants.
Wait, what?
Because like there's a couple of scenes where they get into how they have to, for the human girl, they have to like provide like insurance and stuff like that, and there's like paperwork she has to sign, but there are no law. They're like, I wish I had the screenshot right now, but I took a screenshot of this little cute white cat saying, "Why don't cats have labor laws protecting them?" And they get a little bit into that, and I don't know, like I don't think that's what they were going for, but I also could see how you might think there's some
I feel like unless they I feel like unless they hammer that a lot later on, that strikes me more as just a one-off joke. But like,
it's come up twice in 2 episodes.
Okay, well,
so I don't think it's entirely unfounded. But
I mean, are these cats doing their taxes? I mean, like, what's like, how official is this business?
Are these cats allowed to have bank accounts?
They haven't gotten into that yet, but it would not surprise me if that comes up at some point. Like,
does this cat have a liquor license? Are they?
It's reminded. This is just something that I remembered when you brought this up. But it's like when former yakuza try to start a business or something, like, or go into like the restaurant industry, and they have trouble with bank accounts and stuff.
So the business
they can't even have a point card, just so you know. They can't even rock up to a company with a points card. That's illegal.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So like the business itself is legit, because I know in the second episode they do so the second episode, the obnoxious customer that comes in is a streamer who's like, I'm gonna go check out this cat restaurant. But they explicitly have like a no photography policy. And so he's like, whatever, and he walks in and he's just being like a total asshole about it, and he's like, what, man, I've got 30,000 followers, I'm giving you free publicity. So they're like, oh, maybe somebody should call the police or something, and instead of calling the police, they call he's talking or whatever, and you just see this like huge dude with like a bald head and like a big like burn scar thing on his face.
You're right.
And he just like puts his hand on his shoulder. He's like, why don't you come talk with me? And finally the guy, because the guy's like, oh, go ahead and call the police, they'll just give me more viewers, whatever. And so they this guy walks in and
wait, is it a guy? It's a guy that shows up and not like a cool yakuza cat or anything like that.
No, it's a large human man in a suit. Right. And he's in a suit, and he's like this chisel jawed, bald head, and like with like a burn scar mark on his face or something.
All right.
And they reveal later that this guy is just their lawyer.
All right, that's pretty good.
Yep, all right.
I gotta try this. This sounds like a good show.
So he took him out in the alley, basically to be like, I don't think you want to take this to court, buddy. But
I mean, yeah,
it was very good. And of course, you also got I think I posted in our Discord the screenshot of the Kenjiro Suda cat telling him to please leave with the angry face, which I have a feeling they're going to do that every single time just so he can get that voice off. So, yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's and the tone is very chill, as you might expect. Like there's a little bit of like a found family aspect to it, which is also nice.
Naturally, yeah.
Because which again almost kind of feeds into a little bit of the undocumented immigrant angle, but I'm enjoying it. Is it the most exciting thing I have seen this season? No, but again, it's another show that's kind of focused toward a lot of things I like. So
I don't know, man. Jill, actually, looking at this season, what would you actually call the most exciting show of summer?
All right, you know what? That is a valid point.
Like, I mean, look at this list, dude.
Most of the shows I'm watching are pretty chill. The ones that I would say, Mayonaka Punch is very high energy, at least.
Okay, sure. Okay.
Maybe not exciting, but it is very high energy. So I would put that one over the other ones, but all the other ones are pretty chill.
Like me and Ira are watching Nier Automata, which has the occasional action, and I still would not look at this list and say there's any individual show here where I'm like,
this is an exciting.
It's time to get hyped.
Edge of your seat, hyped up, yes, type of show, yeah. Which I mean, most of the time is fine.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I'm fine with the shows don't have to be that way, but all right. Well, what should have been, I guess, an exciting show.
What should have been the chosen one.
You're supposed to be the chosen one.
You were supposed to make Nichijou cool again.
Let's talk about my dear friend Nokotan. You know what? I'm just going to repeat some of the things I did say in my first look post. This is why I can't get hyped up for shows before they come out. This is what, because this is the first time in a long time I was like, oh, that looks like exactly my kind of show.
I mean, I mean, Jell, I completely agree. Like, I mean, no, here's the thing.
Yeah.
I usually agree that, like, hey, wait till a show is out. But sometimes a show does have the right energy, and you think, oh, it's got this on lock. Like,
And especially a show where I'm not familiar with the source material or anything. I know nothing about this, right?
right. Like, yeah, so yeah, I mean, I got to be real. Like the OP is so catchy. I actually have an easier time remembering the Japanese name than the English name. But
Okay, yes.
Shikanoko Noko Kosh Tantan.
The English title is very good because it's My Dear spelled DEER.
Right, my dear friend Nokotan.
Yeah. So real quick, just the premise.
Yeah.
I mean, it's about this girl who's like the perfect student. Everybody loves her, but secretly she used to be a delinquent, which they don't really do much with this. And she's trying to keep her past the secret, and she runs into this very bizarre, almost supernatural girl with like deer antlers that seems to claim to know her secret or something. And
I mean,
and
the quote unquote joke with the deer girl, or as she becomes known, Nokotan is like she has that almost like kind of Doraemon-esque like gag character power, right? Like, oh, she can do anything as long as it's funny, right? Very Looney Tunes, right? And you know,
she's like indestructible.
Yeah. And amidst all this, right, are like the intentionally bad looking CG deer and like the just like stock deer photos and like very, again, based on the PVs, very strong pop team epic energy, right?
Yeah, I thought this was going to be like I thought this was going to be like cross between Nichijou and Pop Team Epic, which
like very like shit posty, like kind of, you know, a little mean spirited, right? Like in a funny way,
Yeah.
Right.
And yeah, I'm like really actually caught off guard by how much of a miss this is.
So, and it's kind of hard to explain exactly why. I tried in my post, but like, I mean, without watching it, I think once you watch it, you understand completely that it's not hidden.
Right. To be clear, humor is very subjective, right? Like I have definitely seen people say they love this show, so like I think it's probably hitting for some people, maybe. But
I think to me, my take on it, I felt like there are very good visual gags, but they're not connected to any kind of like joke or anything.
I have thought about this for a little bit, and I think my biggest issue with My Dear Friend Nokotan, I actually watched the second episode today. That kind of
did that come out today?
Yes,
it wasn't out when I had looked.
And
okay, I didn't
it's
get a
building
chance to
my
watch
case against helps build my case against Nokotan.
Okay,
is that this show insists upon itself too much for a comedy, and what I mean by that is that it is a comedy that insists it's a comedy too much. Like, there's a lack of confidence in it, and so it feels like many of the jokes.
Please laugh.
Yes, like there's a lot of visual gags that I think actually work pretty well, but the things surrounding the gag, like, it lacks confidence, right? It's too like self-referential. It's too explanatory. It's like it'll do this like pretty good gag, and then it'll have the character react to it. The narrator will say something. The characters will start screaming. Like it's very much one of those like shows that like feels like, oh, loud noises equals humor. And
there's a lot of the main girl like explaining the situation in her head, which. To be fair, that happens a lot in Nichijou too, but for some reason it's funny there. I don't really know why.
So, you and I were actually talking about this the other day. I think the reason why Nichijou works, because Nichijou also does the like, character reacts to a wacky thing by screaming, but also, like, there's a breadth to, like, Nichijou's sense of humor, right? Like, I think everybody kind of knows the, like, infamous, like, the shrine bit.
Yeah. So they mix
and
right.
Like,
so Nichijou, Nichijou mixes it up because there are scenes that are like no dialogue, just complete. Yeah,
and
so
I think those
they mix
contrast
it up more,
well to like when like Yuka is seeing the principal fight the deer, and when she's losing her mind. And what makes that work right is because it's so like absurd, but everything is taken so self-seriously. right?
Yes.
Like it actually does the thing that I think Nokotan occasionally almost touches upon. It almost nails it a couple of times, which is that it is funnier when like the world pretends an insane thing is normal, right?
Yes.
Like there's actually like the gag when Nokotan first enters the classroom
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
shatters the door frame, and in slow motion you see people just like being pelted by the debris.
There's like
and
blood
pretend
coming
like it's
out their head and stuff. Yeah, it's like
right, and they act like it's the most normal thing in the world, and then the way they all instantly turn on the main character when Nokotan is like misdelinquent, and they're like, "Oh my god, she no, it couldn't be. She's a delinquent," and it's like that's actually almost funny, right? Like the inherent absurdism of like the mismatched reactions, but the show calls way too much attention to it, I think.
Yeah.
And I think I would even go as far as say, like, you know, we bring this up a lot when we talk about Trigger. I think Nokotan's comedic timing is not that good.
Yeah. Yep. And it's like I actually don't think it would take much to fix this show.
No, I think like a do-over.
It's close, but if you're even a little off in a comedy like this,
it all sucks.
It makes a huge difference.
Like, Jel, in case, you know, like, I'll just say it because whatever, who cares about spoiling in a show like this?
Oh, yeah, I don't care about it. No.
Episode 2 does the Fist of the North Star gag. It does the girl becomes a Fist of the North Star character gag from, you know, like Bimbo Gami did.
Yes.
And it sucks. The Nokotan version sucks. Because, like, Nokotan becomes a Fist of the North Star character, and the joke is just, haha, she's a Fist of the North Star character. Like, there's nothing else to it. It's just, haha, she's drawn differently now, rather than actually do something with, like, that gag itself, right? The gag is just the art style.
Yeah,
and
so like...
It doesn't work.
Yeah, in comparison, like, when they did that in Bimbo Gami, it was like, that was part of the joke is, haha, it's a different art style. But it was like,
well, the humor is that everybody in the classroom can apparently do it.
And then everyone's like, "Oh, that looks so cool! I want to do it too!"
Right?
And
like,
they all start spreading, and they like, because again, oh god, one of the best comedy directors in my opinion. They just like a silent wide shot of you watch the face spreading through the classroom.
Yeah,
and it's
hilarious.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah. Even I remember that bit.
And I think that's the thing, Nokotan. Like, I think on paper it like knows that, oh, these are the things that good or that anime comedies do, but it does it with either a lack of confidence or a lack of good execution. Hell, similar to Sabagebu. Episode 2 introduces the lecherous lesbian character.
Yes.
Who the whole joke is she is comedically perverted, right? Wants to sniff the main character's panties and feel her lewd body, and
it's good. It's good. Trust us. It's good though.
Here's the thing: in Sabagebu, it works because the main character is such a fucking asshole, right? She just like constantly abuses that character, and like
yes.
And here, it's just like, and also in this version, it's literally also the main character's little sister. She's she's a ciscon, get it? Like,
oh yeah, they tease that at the end. It's funny, like, because again, I don't know anything about the show, and at the end of episode 1, as soon as I saw, they like kind of tease a character, and I'm like, oh god, that's probably going to be like her like ciscon sister or something. And,
yeah,
like,
that is
just looking at it, I immediately
and
knew,
like the big joke of episode 2 is that Nokotan and the ciscon sister, without the main character's consent, agree to have a duel to decide basically who gets custody of her, right? And they have this like, the joke is they have this silly trivia contest where they like, it's a Jeopardy thing where like, and the teacher's even in on it, and the whole school is attending, and it's like, who knows more embarrassing trivia about the main character? Like, what color are her panties, or what age did she stop bedwetting? And the joke is, how does Nokotan know these things, right? Like, somehow Nokotan knows that the main character was a bedwetter until the age of 10 or something, right? And the whole thing is, haha, like, and it just kind of sucks.
Yeah,
like,
that was another thing.
I can't give you like a silver bullet. Oh, this joke falls flat for this reason. It's all execution and timing.
Yeah, and that was
performance.
That was another thing I brought up. The actual once you get to the actual like written jokes in the dialogue, they all suck. So it's all like virgin jokes and panty jokes and siscon
Right.
jokes and like stuff like that. That's all of that is awful. So I don't know. It's just like I
there's a
said,
part, yeah,
we're so
like,
close.
there's a-
It's frustrating because it's so
almost
close.
there. It's almost there, right? Like Nokotan dies in the second episode, and she's like gets picked up by like deer angels with like like literally like deer in angel robes and wings and halos, and they carry her to deer heaven, and deer God is there, and it's just like a photo of a deer like placed on top of God, and it's like it should be excellent, right?
Yes,
it should be killer. It should be a killer joke, and then like the deer God like takes one look at Nokotan and then kicks her back to Earth. He's like, no, actually, we don't want you here.
Yeah.
It's like it's almost. It's like this joke should bang and it doesn't, and that actually like makes me more crazy.
Yeah.
Right.
Ugh.
It's more infuriating than if it just sucked.
Yeah.
Right.
I think what I did realize, this is gonna be like, for me, this is gonna be like when you guys watch a bad mecha anime all the way through. I'm probably gonna watch this whole series
out of sick obligation. You have to bear witness to why My Dear Friend Nokotan is such a bad comedy anime.
Because this is so like should so be in my wheelhouse. And
I think that is the thing, right? Because it's clearly cribbing off of a lot of anime comedies we do like, right? Again, we just name dropped Nichijou, Sabagebu. Like
I was getting like almost Cromartie High School.
Yeah,
a little bit of that.
Not quite, because they're just wildly different aesthetics and tones. But you know what I like, that kind of bizarre.
Well, Cromartie's like absurdism, right? Where it's like, I think the thing that made Cromartie work very well is like it's absurdist, but everybody pretends like it's normal.
Right. Or like before watching the show, it sounded like it was going to be like the most surrealist episodes of Azumanga, where like the small character's dad is a cat who is Santa. You know what I mean? Like that kind of shit.
I think it's that weird thing of like, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to have a straight man character in a comedy. I don't think it's not necessarily a bad thing to have a character who like does not know how to handle the craziness, and the fun is seeing their reaction. I think the problem with my dear friend Nokotan is like the main character, like all she does is like, like go, wow, that's crazy in response to these crazy things. And it's like, that's just not that funny.
Yeah. She's a very like basic straight woman type of character most of the time.
I think this would have even been a better show for me if the jokes had been bad, but they're not. They're just kind of boring. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not a bad show. I didn't watch it thinking this show sucks. I watched it thinking this show was boring.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's to me in a gag
worse.
For an explicitly gag manga based show, that's the worst sin, right? That it's not even so interesting as to be bad.
Yeah.
That's what a disappointment. It's whenever we get this close to being good, it's always more disappointing. And can't wait to watch more.
Look, man, I'm sorry, man. I feel like I already spoiled the quote unquote best jokes episode 2 has. That thing's gonna be a slog for you to watch. Man. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Like
I think I would still enjoy watching the Deer Heaven scene, even knowing that it's coming. It's fine, but all right. Well, perhaps it's interesting. It's an interesting season we have going here. Interesting also that you brought up Sabage Buji. I was going to talk about a little bit about this tradition I've started on our anniversaries.
Wait, was it seriously this summer? Like,
yeah. I was going to talk a little bit about this tradition I've had on our anniversaries, where I look back 10 years to what was happening in anime 10 years ago. And for me, like, the definitive part of summer 2024 is it was one of the best seasons for comedies in GLORIO history.
2014? Or
2014, yes. Sorry, 10 years from 2024. 2014, summer 2014. Because we had two all-time greats that season, which I regret to inform everyone that it's been 10 years since Monthly Girls Nozaki-kun aired.
Okay.
Well,
Then what?
And then Sabage Bu
2014. Okay.
also aired summer 2014. Also, shout out to, at the time, I was watching a show called Loco Doll. I don't know if anybody remembers that.
Oh wow.
I vaguely recall that name.
Is that the one with the magic wish stone?
No, I really always come back to that show. It is not that
What
show.
the-
That show was pre-GLORIO era.
Oh god, you're right. Oh my god.
Loco Doll was a show about the local idol phenomena, where it's like
Oh,
like
yeah.
like local town idols, and most of it
Right,
involves
right.
them wearing mascot suits and things. And that show was pretty.
Yeah.
That show is pretty funny. But the big heavy hitters is like two of the all-time greats, which I feel like, maybe this is just me, I feel like the people who loved Monthly Girls Nozaki-kun kind of got most of them kind of the discussion got replaced by Kaguya-sama. Like, I feel like that took the
I actually see exactly what you mean. Like, I feel
like that took the place as the go-to like romantic comedy, emphasis on comedy type of show.
Yeah, like they're like basically the exact same demographics.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, there are different shows, because like I think Kaguya-sama is much more like mean-spirited, but whereas in Nozaki-kun, nobody is like they're not terrible people. Well, Seo is a terrible person, but everybody else in Nozaki-kun is just, they're just dumb in a good way. Yeah. Nevertheless, Nozaki-kun is still a very good show, I think, and I'm surprised
and I mean,
we
like,
never
just
saw
because,
more of it.
And just to bring it up as a comparison again, it's just like Sabagebu 10 years ago doing this whole dirtbag piece of shit schoolgirls thing, like,
Still
so much better than
arguably the
other
best.
shows.
Still arguably the best in the GLORIO era for me, as far as just sheer laugh per minute. So yeah,
Look,
I mean,
man, like 6 men died to.
God, no. Okay, as far as individual scenes, nothing has ever topped that helicopter scene. I'll see if I can find that and link that in the post.
Yeah,
because
you should, man.
that's still probably the single funniest scene of any anime in the GLORIO era.
Oh,
I think even if you don't watch the show without, it's funnier with the context of the rest of the show. But I think even on its own, that is a funny scene. But yeah, I mean that was sort of like what I remember of 2014. I'm just skimming like.
Well, just so you don't all get too depressed, thinking back to the golden era of summer 2014, it was also the season of what I'm sure everyone will agree GLORIO blog's favorite series, such as Sword Art Online 2 and
Yes.
Al Noah Zero.
Yes, Al Noah Zero. Actually,
you had to bring that one up just to hurt me, Artemis.
Actually, Al Noah Zero.
I know my crowd.
Was it like, how did you say this again? Argvolin or something? Was that the same season?
Argvolin! Oh my god, Argvolin! Man, that one was also
the
not
same,
good, but
same, or they must have at least overlapped the same
sure,
season.
Yeah.
It's the second half of Space Dandy.
Second half of Space Dandy was airing. I never really got into Space Dandy, but I know you guys love it. Yeah. So it's pretty solid season.
Captain Earth.
I mean, despite the existence of Al Noah Zero,
I mean, for me, it was a pretty solid season. I don't know about you guys.
No. What I'm building up to is I think I would still take summer 2014 over summer 2024 personally.
Okay.
But,
yeah. Yep.
Hey, Marvel Discourse was airing.
Oh my god.
And that was also, by the way, when Doga Kobo was still an independent entity.
Bring up that
In case you all forgot what else happened this week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Consolidation, huh?
Bought by. They're part of the.
They're part of
Kadokawa
now, like everybody else.
Yeah.
Which means Doga Kobo will probably make the Elden Ring anime now.
Yep.
That would be fascinating.
It's the same company. I mean, it's the same parent company. I mean, it's not actually.
Whatever. I know, but I'm just thinking of how they would. That would be very interesting. All right. Well, we need to wrap this up.
Yes.
So that'll do it for this episode. You can let's do our housekeeping. Check us out at theglorioblog.com, where you can read all of our other first looks. I definitely encourage you, especially to go check out Peter's post on Senpai as an Otokonoko, but you can read all the other shows, including ones that we did not talk about here because this podcast is already over 2 hours. You can also check us out on co-host at GLORIO, where I've been kind of posting whatever I'm thinking, almost like a behind the scenes on the podcast recently, but you can go check that out. You can also subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts. I think Google Play doesn't exist anymore. I have to double check that.
I was about to say, yeah.
I still have the link on our show notes. I might have to pull that out. Spotify, Amazon Music, Podbean, Stitcher, and of course YouTube, where you can like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell. Tell us what shows you're watching this season, and if there are any interesting ones that we missed. And tell your friends, tell your enemies. I'll catch you next time.